Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I am returning to my series with my father, the interview series that I conducted with my father during college for the Library of Congress. The interview is about 8 years old now, but making a video series out of this, and this is, I think, the fourth part of the series, so we're returning to that. With that being said, I hope everyone in the United States is having a wonderful Independence Day and celebrating the independence of this country, and having a good time and a safe time doing so. For everybody outside the United States, I likewise hope you're all having a great day. Where we last left off, my dad was talking about his experiences in Vietnam, and we kind of left off in the middle of that. So we had talked about one of his commands or one of his assignments in Vietnam, and we hadn't quite gotten into the second phase of his deployment there, which we'll get into here in a minute. I'm probably going to split this into about two 20-minute segments. I've got 40 minutes left of interview, and the way that the footage is set out here, we're going to see the end of the Battle of Guadalcanal very shortly. As you can see, these soldiers here are advancing across the map. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to bring in footage from the next battle, which is the Battle of New Caledonia. Now, I'm not going to be able to provide much of an explanation about that because that is going to be going on during the actual interview portion. So I'll probably address that in a follow-on video and just kind of talk where we're at. But with that being said, I think I've rambled long enough here. We'll go ahead and we'll jump in here as we're just about to win the Battle of Guadalcanal. And again, this is going to span Guadalcanal and New Caledonia. In case you guys are wondering what the game is on the screen, it's Order of Battle World War II. Originally Order of Battle Pacific. It's now a free-to-play game on Steam, although it's kind of one of those you buy campaigns within it, so you can play the kind of base and the demo for free, but then if you want the whole, or in the like boot camp version of it, but if you want the whole version, then you have to kind of buy it in different packs. But anyway, guys, that's enough of me talking about not much, and we'll go ahead and we'll jump back into the interview.
Was there a lot of corruption going on? You hear a lot about today.
There was a lot of corruption in two ways. Number one, there was a lot of corruption among the Vietnamese who worked for the Americans, a tremendous amount. As a matter of fact, as I've mentioned before, I mean, we had people killed on Long Binh who stepped on landmines that were located inside of sandbags that were part of a bunker or something like that. It wasn't a big thing, but it did happen. I mean, I remember being at a meeting one day, and just to show you how paranoid people were, we were in what's called a GP tent, a large tent, which, I don't know, it's maybe 40 feet long and 20 feet across. And we were having a meeting at the 89th Military Police Group, and a Jeep inadvertently grabbed a communication wire as it was driving by and pulled the tent down, and just about everybody thought we were under attack at that point in time. You never knew. I mean, it happened all the time. We came under mortar attack from time to time. Fortunately, none hit in our area. Long Binh was a very large post. I mean, I'd say Long Binh physically was probably the size of Elm Grove. I mean, it was, 6 miles square. It was a pretty good-sized area, very large area. So, at any rate, back to you. I'm sorry, what was your question again?
I was just asking if there was a lot of corruption.
Oh, corruption.
Supplies going missing.
Well, if you remember the old television series MASH and the supply sergeant there who traded this for that and these for those, and there was a lot of that going on. But that I wouldn't call that corruption. I'd call that scrounging, which is what we called it. Like when I was in Vung Tau, we had, I don't know how we came about it, we had a large supply of concrete or of cement in bags. And we used to trade that to get steaks so that my troops could have steaks to eat at dinner at night. I remember one of my duties as the supply officer when I was a major back in Long Binh was to run the officers club. And it was very hot. So I had a couple of my sergeants go down to Saigon to see what they could roust out in terms of some kind of a air conditioning or refrigeration unit. And they ended up coming back with a huge refrigeration unit that we used to blow directly into the tent that was the officers' club and it provided a very comfortable place to be. Actually, they got two. They got one for the Enlisted Men's Club and one for the Officers Club as well, and I'm glad they did that. But I'm not sure what they traded. I know they traded something, but a lot of that went on. Now, I wouldn't call that corruption. To me, that's part of the military. That's part of what you do.
What was the military?
It wasn't legal, but it was part of what you do.
What was your opinion and sort of maybe from what you perceived, your men's opinion of the mission in Vietnam?
Very high. Everybody I knew thought we were there for a good reason. The only ones who didn't were the ones who ended up in what was called Long Binh Jail, and that was a stockade. And they ended up in Long Binh Jail because they basically were druggies. A friend, Major Jackson, ran that stockade. I'm fortunate that I never got to operate that. That's one thing I never wanted to do, to be involved with confinement, if you will. But he took me on a tour through there, and literally, as you walked through the confinement, the stockade, you could literally hear capsules cracking under your feet. I mean, it was rampant among those troops. Not all troops. The very, very small 1 or 2% of all troops might have been bad apples, if you will, who really were into the drug culture and that sort of thing. But the great majority of troops never saw one single instance in my entire year in Vietnam where somebody who wasn't in the stockade was involved in any way with something as minor as marijuana.
So the stereotype of
it is a
the
stereotype, but it's a
Vietnam
it's a false stereotype. What they focused in on was the bad apples, and that's like the media for anything. They seem to focus in on the negativity.
All right. So what about you? I mean, did you think Vietnam was?
I thought it was something we needed to do. First of all, it was my responsibility to serve my country. And I felt that it was important that we do the mission to the best of our ability, whatever those missions happen to be. I had occasion to meet General Abrams when he took over from General Westmoreland. He came up, and there was an award ceremony where 3 troops from one of the other battalions, not ours, received the Silver Star for some heroism when they were out escorting a convoy and came under attack and were able to save a number of U.S. troops as a result of that. And, I admired the military hierarchy. I'll have to say quite candidly that the diplomatic hierarchy was not high on my list of positive recognition, because I felt to some degree our hands were tied as to what we did. And I'm not sure where the blame lies, but it certainly was distressing at times to see where we were excluded from doing certain things that we weren't allowed to do, and I really don't want to go into detail on those because they might violate some confidentiality. But there were some things that occurred, again, not in the military hierarchy. The military just basically had to salute and say, yes, sir. And that's from General Abrams on down.
And General
Westmoreland.
Westmoreland was General William Westmoreland, commander of U.S. forces in Vietnam.
That's correct.
And then
when I got there.
General Creighton Abrams was...
He took over for Westmoreland.
All right. Okay, so you leave Vietnam and you come back to America. What was...
Yeah, it was okay because I was stationed at Fort Gordon. I was going to the officer career course, as I mentioned. That's a 9-month course. And we had 2 sections. Each section had about 40 officers in it. And during that period of time, in addition to going through the officer career course and learning all of the things we had to learn in the law enforcement area, I also went through 2 other courses. One was called Instructor Training Course, which actually has stood me in good stead later on in my life. And another was what's called CDOC, or Civil Disturbances Orientation Course, because, again, in 1968, a lot of stuff was happening around this country, and we were concerned about civil disturbances and disasters. Well, I went through that course. It was very informative, very interesting. And not only did the military police officers attend, we had actually governors and mayors from a number of states and cities around the country who also attended the course, because obviously they were concerned about things that could happen or did happen in their cities or states. So anyhow, I went through that course, and upon graduation from the CDOC, or from the Officer Career Course, I was assigned to, a mouthful, doctrine development, literature, and plans. But what my job was, I was given the doctrinal responsibility for the U.S. Army for everything dealing with criminal justice and civil disturbances and disasters. And that was a very interesting assignment. I was in an assignment for 2 years. And during that period of time, I completely wrote a brand new manual on criminal justice, actually on criminal investigation, for the military, FM 19-20, Field Manual 19-20, and basically took a number of different publications over the years and combined them into a comprehensive text. Secondly, I had to revise our manuals that dealt with the doctrine on civil disturbances and disasters, because what had happened at the Pentagon in Oktoberfest and some other things that occurred. Had occasion to go there. It was not a very pleasant situation. I did not actually participate, but I observed what was going on. And after the tragedy at Kent State, where a lieutenant gave the order to fire on some protesters at Kent State University in Ohio, I'm not sure exactly when that was. I think it was in 1969 or 70, somewhere in there, where I still was in that assignment.
Before the Sterling Hall bombings, which was later.
Okay, and at any rate, I was very concerned with what the news media reported, and I was very happy that Walter Cronkite, who was then the CBS anchor, read from my manual on what should have happened versus what did happen. So we were kind of exonerated, if you will, even though, of course, the people who were killed, and that's a tragedy, of course. We had it turns out, a lieutenant in the Ohio National Guard, not on active duty, who jumped the gun, frankly, and ordered his men to fire, and should never have done that, was not properly trained, or just got overexcited with what occurred. A terrible tragedy. But at least we knew doctrinally we were sound as to what should have occurred. And that was very interesting. So, but during that period of time, and something I didn't mention, when I went on active duty in 1961, I only had about a year of college. So what I did during that entire 9 years that I was on active duty was I went to night school at every opportunity. When I was stationed, for example, at Fort Benjamin Harrison, I went to what's called UIPUI, or Indiana University, Purdue University in Indianapolis. When I was in Maryland at Fort Holabird taking that imagery interpretation course, I went to the University of Maryland in Baltimore. When I was in Europe, I went to the University of Maryland overseas. They had a very extensive program overseas, all at night school, of course. When I was in Fort Lewis, Washington, I went to the University of Puget Sound at night school. And then nothing in Vietnam, of course. But when I came back to the States and I was stationed at Fort Gordon and going on the career course, I also went to a small school in Augusta, Georgia called Augusta College. It's now called Augusta State University. And I eventually got to the point where I was going to get my degree, or I saw where I was going to get my degree. And as I mentioned before, my wife was not very happy in the military at all. She didn't like all of the things that she had to put up with. And so I decided by then to come off active duty. I knew I was going to stay in the reserve, but I wanted to get off active duty. So when I was going to get my undergraduate degree in business, as it turned out, in marketing specifically, I began applying to several schools for masters, because by then I'd been on active duty 9 years, and I was, let's say, 9 years behind my peers out of high school and college, if you will, getting into the business community. So I wanted to have a leg up, and an MBA seemed like a smart thing to do. So I applied at 4 schools. I applied at Harvard Graduate School of Business Administration. I applied at Dartmouth Tuck School. I applied at MIT's Sloan School of Management, and I applied kind of as a fallback position at the University of North Carolina. That was kind of, well, if the 3 really top-notch schools didn't accept me, I always had North Carolina to fall back on. I felt that my grades were good enough because I did have a B average.
Your sight's low, you know. North Carolina is your fallback school.
Well, yeah. At any rate, it was a fallback only. I mean, it was a good school, but they were just starting their MBA program at that time. As a matter of fact, it was run by a fellow named Rob. Well, as I said, North Carolina was kind of my fallback position, and as it turned out, I had to take the appropriate tests, of course, to get into graduate school. Like, I kind of as a warm-up, I didn't need to take it, but I took what's called the Graduate Record Exam, GRE, in business, and I did very well on that. It was kind of my warm-up for the other test I had to take, which at the time was called Admissions Test for Graduate Study in Business, or the ATGSB. It goes under a different name now, but it's called the GMAT now, Graduate Management Aptitude Test, I believe. At any rate, I took that test and did very well on it. Ended up in the upper 3% of all scores. And I was in the same category, basically, in the GRE, actually a little higher in the upper 2% there. But
Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and jump in and end this video here. I know it's a much shorter video, but we're really through Vietnam and we're starting to talk about his post-war experience. So we'll go ahead and we'll leave that for the final video, which will be coming up shortly. Hope you guys are still all enjoying the series. Again, you can tell here that we've moved out of Guadalcanal. We won a victory there, and we're moving into New Caledonia now. I probably won't talk about that in the next interview. I'll kind of go over that in a follow-on video as well. But anyway, guys, I hope you're still enjoying the series. Let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment discussion. Shoot me messages. I appreciate all the kind words and feedback I've gotten from all of you thus far throughout the series. So keep it coming, and let me know what else you'd like to see. But for now, that's going to do it. So once again, thanks everybody for watching, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.